whiteboard. Okay. And then under command settings, contacts, contact archive, then they would be in here. And you can search by name or email address at the top. Now, the reason they do this from an archive versus just a straight up delete is to protect you from yourself. So from the main screen, if you archive anybody, they're going to come here. They're not essentially deleted. Deletion is a two-step process. And many agents have been happy that that was in place rather than just a flat out delete. Although at times like today, they get confused or tripped up when they're going to enter somebody and they're already existing, but they're not seeing them on their main database. Does that make sense?
Can you repeat that?
I was just saying that a lot of agents get tripped up when they think they've deleted somebody, but they're actually sitting in that archive folder. Okay, so we're going to jump into opportunities here. Let me pull up my slides for today. All right, so opportunities. So I like to call the opportunities your digital whiteboard. Who all has a whiteboard in their office? Right? So what do you have to do with that whiteboard? You have to update it regularly, right? Dates, addresses, names, statuses, price points, terms, dates, all that information. And at the same time, what happens? You get all this black and red smudge on your forearm because you go to erase it all the time. That happens, right? And usually when you're wearing something white, right? That's always a good day. So that's why I like to call opportunities your digital whiteboard. A lot of people think it's just for transaction to close because there are checklists embedded in there, but it's not. To me, it's so much more. And in behind contacts, probably the second most important applet that I think is inside of the system from a business tracking standpoint, right? So realize when you're building businesses, right, or running a real estate practice, you are building a business. And that business has value. And it might have value to somebody else for you over time as an asset that you can sell. A lot of people don't think big terms like this, but if you've read the Red Book, I don't know if anybody's read this book. Anybody read this book? Once, twice, 3 times a charm, right? This book talks about building your business to the 7th level. Not everybody does that. That's okay, right? Not everybody gets past 1st or 2nd level. That's okay too. But your database has value. That's why we're constantly under attack, right? People want our information. So your pipeline is value, right? If you have business in there, sitting in there, database and opportunities, that's documented proof saying, hey, there's $1 million worth of business in here. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But if you track it, you can share it with somebody and maybe that you assign a value to that if you grow out or want to sell your business. This is part of that, right? Also, where are you at in any particular month? Where are you at in particular point of the time of the year? Where are you at against your goals? How are your team members doing, right? We talked about one whiteboard for you personally, but if you're on a team, how many whiteboards do you have to have in your office if you're on a team? Because then you have to structure by everybody, right? Listings by Patricia, buyers by Christy, under contracts by Marcel, right? Imagine a world where you could have a TV screen on your desktop or on your wall, and you just change. All right, let's look at Patricia's stuff. Let's look at Christy's stuff. Let's look at Jamie's stuff, right? Nice, crisp, clean, and organized. So that's what the Rainmakers have at their disposal. Now, just so you guys all know, when you're on a team, if you're on a team, you don't have insight into anybody else's opportunities. It's just you, right? You see your business. The Rainmaker sees everybody on a team. But agents to agents, they don't see anything else. Just want to clear that up. Okay, so, but you should be starting your business. I always like to ask this question. See if you guys know the answer to this. When should you create an opportunity? Go ahead, open mic. Who knows when they should create an opportunity the first time? You opened your mic, Patricia, you got to talk.
I want to talk. So I put them in opportunities when I've had a meaningful conversation with them, something that says to me they're moving forward. We've had two-way conversation that was a good conversation. It wasn't just, oh, I have another realtor. Thanks for calling me. So that way it keeps me, when I look at opportunities, I know who are my kind of what I call hots, people that I really need to make sure that I'm connecting with and meeting those tasks for them.
Right? You're cultivating that relationship, right? You're not active yet, like with a listing or a buyer agreement, but you are under the understanding that you sell real estate and they may do some business with you.
Right.
Perfect. That's cultivating that relationship. That's that first phase inside of that opportunity pipeline. I will tell you, the majority of agents don't do anything in there until they're active, right? Either they've taken the listing or they've created a buyer broker agreement. I hope you guys are using them, right? To then they get around to processing paperwork, and that's where they start tracking the opportunities. I will tell you, the earlier you start, the more successful you will be in your career because you're tracking, right? You can't see my desk, but I have, believe it or not, I'm still old school. I've got paper, you'll see this, papers and sticky notes all over the place, right? Notebooks. I'm the tech director and I still use all this stuff. I like to write things down. But I know a majority of the agents, even if they're not even using a whiteboard in their office, everything's on sticky notes. And I know you guys know where everything is, right? Because I know where everything is, right? You never lose anything with it being on a sticky note, right? Christy, I feel like you totally know where I'm coming from on this.
I'm obsessed with sticky notes. Yeah.
And I'm okay with, I used to have a box. And at the end of the year, I would just have like 300 sticky notes or more inside of a box that I would clean my desk off. And I would go through them like, I don't know if I ever did that. It sounded good at the time. You've got to take that information and put it somewhere else. I'm totally cool with you writing it down first. You're in the moment. I still use pencils. I love pencils. I write everything in pencil. But you've got to move that information to somewhere else, right? Those opportunities, those are your triggers for tracking, okay? Inside the opportunities, there are checklists. Now, it's hard as a solo agent to be incredibly organized, right? That's why we talk about KW, that first important hire for you is your admin. And that second hire is what? Another admin, right? So you're growing your business. Your first two hires should be administrative support before you ever get to the point of hiring a buyer's agent or a showing assistant. And most people try to shortcut and circumvent that. That has proven that doesn't work. Admin adds leverage to your world. Every admin you add should add about the bandwidth for each individual to do an additional 26 units per year. That's the mindset around it, and that's what we talk about in the Red Book. So that's why it's so important to hire not just an admin, but hire the right admin. And maybe that first admin is a virtual assistant. That's okay too. They add leverage to your world and organization and structure to do a lot of this paper trail, these things that are happening. Checklists, what do I do? What do I do if I'm Patricia, to when I have that first substantive conversation and I enter them in, right? I enter them into my cultivate stage, but what am I doing? I'm making phone calls, I'm sending emails, right? I probably set them up on a neighborhood alert. I'm sending them this piece of information. Maybe I'm trying to have them talk to a lender. These are all things that you should all get repetitiously conscious about. What do you do when somebody's at a certain point in your business? What do those checklists look like? Have you built them? I'm going to share some things. And Ted was on the call. I don't know if he's still on the call. If Ted, you're still on the call, would you share the file drawer for the opportunity checklists that are on the Facebook page and just throw ahead and put those in the chat? So one thing we don't have, and I'm requesting heavily, and if you guys can help me out, you can go to ideas.kw.com and recommend that we have a checklist library. That's requested in there. But Ted's going to go ahead and put these checklist files for you that are available to you. You just have to go in and build them. There's no default checklists. There are stages. We're going to talk about those, but there are no default checklists. And as a new associate, I know how challenging that can be because you don't know what you don't know, right? So they're going to be available for you, and we'll put those into chat if Ted is paying attention. Not quite sure, but we'll get you there. So checklists, stages, and updates. So at the end of each day, right, or depending on where you are in a transaction, you may find yourself sending an email out to your consumers. Here's what I did for you today. If you went active, right, you get very, very busy, very, very fast. You got to call Miss Utility. You got to call sign up. You got to hang signs. You got to hang sign riders. You might need to, right, call principal photography or principal videography. These are all things that you do and you need to notify your client about. Well, inside the system, if you have checklists, you can tell the checklist that, hey, these things are important. We call them client updates. And at the end of the day, If we did certain things that we said were important for our client to know, it sends an email automatically out to them and says, hey, we did all these things on your behalf today. So the system can do that for you. It's small. It's not very overly detailed, right? It's personalized to a degree, but it's just pulling checklist items. But it's a great place to start, right? It's a first foray into automatic notifications from a client update portal that we could have inside of the system. All right, so that's client updates. Talked about the digital whiteboards, right? What are the opportunity details? Client updates, details, seller profile, documents, offers, commissions and notes, notes and timelines. You're going to see a whole detail page where all this information gets updated. And if you're tracking your reports as you should, and you entered your goals for the year as you should, the more dates, the more you move a transaction along. And I'm not just talking about from phase to phase, but date to date. It tracks your conversion. It tracks your success rate, right? And it only knows to track those things if you provide it with that information. And we'll look at that, okay? We're going to talk about filtering. We covered in contacts that you have smart views and filters around filtering out tags and seeing certain bits of information based on context in your database. You can do the same exact thing inside of opportunities. I can separate out my listings. I can separate it out by buyer's agents on my teams. I can separate it out by what I closed this year. I can separate it out by what's under contract. That's that whiteboard portion of it that I love so much. And if you have a team, you can actually have conversations and chatter and discussions around a particular opportunity, because you might have multiple people working on an opportunity. You might have admin, you might have a TC, you might have a fellow agent that are all assigned to work that transaction with you and moving the thing forward. All right, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to share my screen now. So there we go. All right, does everybody see my screen okay? Awesome. All right, so we're going to jump in here. Opportunities on the left are the two hands shaking hands. That's our opportunities display, okay? Now, you can create an opportunity in two places. One is going directly into opportunities, or two, you can go into a contact record. And I will say that most associates will probably be on a contact record to start. So right here from the contact record, I'm on Snoopy here, we'll see that there's opportunities on the right-hand side. If I click on opportunities, you'll see that I don't have any yet. I haven't created any. So I can create an opportunity. Your market center will show up. If you're on a team, that will show up as well. Opportunity type, I prefer to not have a default here, but this is the way the system is right now. Again, ideas.kw.com. Recommend that this becomes a selected portal versus default, because what happens is, and I know you guys are never in a rush, right? You guys never rush through business, never wait till payday to process your opportunities. Like that never happens, right, Ted? Right. You should be processing these things within 48 hours or sooner. But what I see happen a lot is they come here, they create the opportunity and they rush through here and they don't change the type from listing to buyer or landlord or tenant. And you really need to do that, because if you don't, you're going to create the wrong opportunity type and you're not going to have access to do it to what you need to do to process commissions and get paid, and thus have to start all over again. Okay. You cannot create an opportunity as a listing and then change it later, like, oh, I meant it to be a buyer. It has to be created the right way from jump. All right. So I like to make that clear. So I'm going to make Snoopy a buyer here. You'll see the opportunity name will come in. If it's a buyer, I just leave it the buyer's name. If it's a property and the listing, I go with the property address. And then I go back later once I've ratified, if I'm working with a buyer, I'll change the name of the opportunity to the property address. I just like things organized, categorized under address. But when you're working with a buyer, you may not have identified a property yet. So you start with their name. I think that should make sense for most people. Okay. Tags. We talked about tags under contacts. You can have tags for opportunities, right? Maybe I have a lender tag, right? Maybe I have my title company. Okay. You can tag different things in opportunities, just like tags that mean different things. Maybe you tag where the lead came from. Open house, right? So you've got a lot of opportunities here. Now I'm in my default account, so all my traditional things aren't showing up here, but there are different opportunity tags that relate to contact tags. And the more you track your business and know where things came from, the more organized you can be and filter those apart. I talked to you guys a lot about contacts are a database. Opportunities are also a database. So you need to be able to filter through that with tags. All right. Estimated close date, we'll just throw one in here for the sake. We'll say next month. Time frame, 1 month. So the budget for them would be $750. Dog houses are getting quite expensive these days in the DC metropolitan area. And I'm going to go ahead and throw them into the cultivate phase. So you'll see that at the bottom, you have 3 phases to choose from: cultivate, appointment, or active. There are 5 phases all day, but when you're creating an opportunity, you cannot throw them into under contract or closed. You have to be deliberate about moving them forward by either cultivate, appointment, or active. So let's go ahead and say we're going to put them in the cultivate. Snoopy and I are just kind of talking about this. Actually, let me move this out another month. There you go. And then there are stages, default stages built into the platform for you. I'll say Snoopy's hot, he's ready to go. And you can customize some too. So you have default, and then you can customize stages. You cannot customize phases, they're static for everybody. So we'll see what that looks like in a moment. So that's creating the opportunity. The moment that I do that, it shows up on Snoopy's contact card, right, that I have an opportunity here. Now, if I click on that opportunity, it's going to bring me to opportunity details. Okay, I told you earlier that details are constantly changing, right? So you can come in here to the details about, and maybe now I've identified a property, so I can put property information in here, or ratified. I can go under details and I say, you know what, well, Snoopy and I now have an appointment scheduled. I scheduled an appointment today, but the appointment is actually going to be next week. This is the wrong date, isn't it? Today's the 15th. I don't know why it's back, and it's next week. So I can put those appointment dates in. If I'm tracking my conversions for appointments, it won't track them without these dates. So give it the information on the back end. If I wrote a contract, when did it win? What's the contract date? What's the close date? And now I know that also Snoopy's going to go conventional. Save.
When you create the appointment date, does it create a task?
It does not. Not yet.
Okay.
Good question. That will be in future versions for sure. All right, so these are the details. Also cost of details. I'll highlight this. See this little settings wheel at the top. So I mentioned there are client updates and things that you need to do. Well, in order, there's 2 steps to utilizing client updates. First, you have to set it up from your settings tab. So you hit this little settings wheel. It'll open up underneath your settings for you, client updates. And what you're going to tell the system at this point is at what time of day, because it's once a day, do I want my client update emails to fire? 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, do I want it to go in the morning? Doesn't matter, okay? So if I go in here and say, hey, let's make it at 8 o'clock at night, PM, my emails go out. They're going from, I'm only a solo team here, but they would go from me, right? And at the bottom, I have a default and a preview. Right now, there's only a default. There's only one option. So this leads me to believe that in the future, we're going to have the ability to choose from different layouts or designs of what this email is that triggers. But I just want you to see the preview. So this is the email that would go out. It would be branded to you if your marketing material is all up to snuff, right? It'll say their name. It'll say the property address. If a property is tagged to this, if it's a buyer, I might not have a property yet. If it's a seller and it's active, then obviously I would have the property attached. And there's a picture here. There's no picture if there's no property connected to the transaction, okay? Remember, all of our listings, or actually all the listings from the MLS are in the KWS. So whether I'm the listing or the buyer, I can sync my opportunity with an active listing. And it'll pull data in. And one part of that data is this picture. The very first picture that's in the MLS will show up as the backdrop for this email. Can't change it. That's just what it is. Okay. And then any of the checklisted items that I accomplished today for this consumer would be listed as here. Here's what Patricia did for you today. She called Miss Utility. She ordered sign up, right? And scheduled photography. So that's kind of what happens here. Now, remember, it's very limited to pulling the checklist, what we'll see in a minute. So it won't say scheduled photography for Tuesday. So there's some nuance into what's going on here yet, because I can't customize it fully yet. Remember, this is step one on this type of communication. But it's a very nice looking, neat, clean update. Now, so that's setting it up. Now let me actually come back to the specific opportunity for Snoopy. Now you only have to hit that setting one time. Once you've set it up, it's set the fire at whatever time of day you set it. Now, each opportunity has to have client updates engaged. Okay, just because you set it up from the master level doesn't mean emails are going to be going out for every opportunity. So now from the details page, you've got client updates at the top. So you have to go to client updates and I have to toggle it on. You have to toggle it on for every opportunity. There's no default yet to say, I want them always on. They have done enough studies and talked to enough agents that the agents wanted this control. So this is what's in place right now, is that I have to set it up. I could modify the times here. Remember, I set the default time first, but if I wanted to change the time for this specific client, because they said, hey, I go to bed at 8 o'clock at night. Okay, then I set it for 7. Doesn't change the master, it just changes it for this specific opportunity, right? If I had multiple people on the transaction, they can be CC'd on it. If I want my Rainmaker to be CC'd on it because I'm on a team, they can be CC'd on it. Okay, then I would hit save changes, and then that would be turned on for this particular opportunity. Now, in the future, I'll show you where they're talking about moving that to, but right now it's kind of buried a little bit. But I want you to, I saw Patricia taking notes, I want you to be conscious of turning that on, right? Because I do get calls sometimes from people saying, my opportunity is on firing. They didn't turn them on for the opportunity itself. So we clear with that? Clear as mud? All right, awesome. Now you also have lost opportunity here. There's 3 things that happen with an opportunity, right? We either closed it and got paid. Okay, I archived it because it was a test, it was a demo opportunity that I was playing around with, or I lost it. Now, Patricia mentioned earlier that I create an opportunity the moment that I have a substantive conversation with somebody about doing business, right? So once I've kind of gone through the process and we've established a relationship that I'm going to help you buy a house, whether or not we've ratified a transaction agreement doesn't matter, does it, Patricia? Right? You and I have an understanding, so I created an opportunity. Now, in our business, we need to know our numbers. We need to know how well do I convert things? How many opportunities or appointments do I have to go on before I get somebody to work with me? How many contracts do I write before I get somebody to close? Like, we understand the business model around the law of numbers that we have to do. You have to be able to answer this for yourself, right? What is your conversion rates? So once I create an opportunity, now let's pretend, and I'm not going to jinx anybody here, I'll go with myself, that I have met with my neighbor, Mike. Mike and I'm setting him up on some listing appointments. I'm talking about showing a property. I'm having him talk to a lender. I don't have a buyer broker agreement in place yet, but we're talking about doing something. Then I got an email from Mike. Dave, I appreciate everything you've done about educating me on the current market and wanting to do, but my cousin Chuck just got his real estate license and I'm going to go ahead and work with him. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you're new to the business, this is going to happen to you. Okay, you're going to have an expectation to work with somebody, even somebody you're close with. Be prepared for it and don't get mad. It happens. It's cost of doing business. But I had created an opportunity for Mike and I. Well, Mike has now told me he's going to go work with Chuck. All right, so now I've lost the opportunity to do business with Mike. So it's me being honest to myself. Could I archive it, make it go away? Sure, I could. But that's not me being honest to myself. Right? The opportunity police are going to come down and say, hey, David, you're not being truthful with yourself. Only I know that, right? So be honest. If something falls out at any stage, market is lost. Now, maybe 6 months from now, Mike comes back, goes, man, my cousin Chuck really doesn't know anything about real estate. We've written 15 offers. I can't get anything done. You think you can help me? I can change that from lost and I can bring it back. You can turn them on, you can turn them off. Okay, so being honest with yourself about your business. On this page, you're going to see a couple other things. There's details, which we covered. There's a buyer profile. If your buyer is working through your consumer app or your mobile app and they're checking off the different stages on your buyer guides, which we'll touch on Monday, this will be updated here. Documents, once you've ratified documents and you're getting them in a compliance standpoint, all your documents have to be loaded here, right? From a compliance standpoint, to get paid. Offers and commissions, once I've ratified a contract, We don't use green sheets anymore in our market centers. We do offers and commissions. So you have to put the information about the transaction in here and submit a commissions request to your MCA. And your MCA and your broker will review all your documents, say everything's good, approve that request, generate a DA, and then on closing date, you're going to get paid. That's a perfect world. That's how everything always works in real estate, right? It's always that simple. Ain't not. Too many people aren't doing these things, and your MCAs will back me up here. People are not updating their documents. People are not submitting commissions agreements prior to closing date, and they're not getting paid on time. Christy, got a question?
Yeah, quick question on that lost opportunity. Is there somewhere where you can write a description or something so that you can remember what happened to make it a lost opportunity?
You could put, at the moment, you can put them under notes.
Okay. Thanks.
Not a problem.
This is Patricia. I have a question too.
Description right here. Go ahead, Patricia.
So I had a client that was super actively looking, but then she just realized she couldn't afford it and she decided to rent again for another year. But we still have a good relationship, but we kind of put the search on hold for about 7 months. Of course, I'm still going to keep in contact with her. Do I put that in watch under cultivate, or do I make it a lost opportunity?
It depends how, those are personal choices, right? If she's still engaged in watching, and in 7 months that she's going to start looking again, I might just move her backwards to watch in the cultivate stage, because she hasn't told me that she's not going to buy. She hasn't told me she's not going to work with me. She just went backwards in the process.
Gotcha. Okay.
Your opportunities could easily be 12, 16, 18, 24 months out. They don't have to be 3 to 6 months. They could be further than that. And that's where that cultivate stage comes into play.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'll go back to everything. As long as you're consistent about how you do business, that's all that really matters, right? If you know that, hey, I'm developing that relationship and they're 12, 18, 24 months out and I have cultivate, great. And then just keep monitoring that. And in the moment they say, we're not buying, then that's when you mark them as lost or selling, right? All right, so now I'm going to come back out and I'm going to come to the opportunities dashboard. So it looks a little different here, right? So this is the dashboard. It's broken down by listings, buyers, and leases. Okay. Another request that we actually have into KW is that a fourth one gets added for tracking referrals on our dashboard. So that's in discussions. Okay, that would be nice, right? But you'll see here, and I added Snoopy as a buyer, right? So he's going to be under the cultivate stage, right? That's why I see a 1 there and a value of $750,000 for that transaction, because that's what I said it would be. And then that 750 I put in at 3% is going to be over here in this potential income number. So this potential income totals up all the opportunities that are in these different phases, okay? Cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, or closed, of potential earnings that I have and a value in my pipeline. Now, you also see probable income. Now, I don't know how long you guys have been in real estate, but there's only 2 outcomes when it comes to getting paid, right? It's either you're getting all of it or none of it. There's no in between. Typically, there's some nuance there, but typically you're getting all of it or none of it, right? So this probable income, it's you having a game with the system a little bit. I talk about knowing your numbers. So do you know well enough that, hey, if I put somebody in Cultivate, what percentage of the people in Cultivate actually do I end up closing business on? Maybe it's 20%. So this transaction for Snoopy, okay, is right here. That's valued at $22,000, okay, at this stage, okay, is marked at 10%. So that has a value of $2,500, right? 22,000 times 10%. Back on the opportunities dashboard, under probable income is at $2,250 is under probable. It's just letting you know at the value of everything and where they are percentage-wise in your pipeline. You're never going to get a 10% paycheck because they bailed out on you, right? And these 2 numbers, potential and probable, will never meet unless you only have one opportunity that actually gets all the way to close, right? They'll never actually match. There's always going to be a gap. Your game is to keep moving these people forward and get these numbers as close as I can, but I'm always adding more people, so potential income's going up. I'm always moving people, and probable is always going up, and that gap may narrow, but like I said, unless I have one, they'll probably never touch. Probable is a fictitious number, but it's fun to kind of see what you're doing and how far along you are in your transaction curve. Does that make sense? Potential, probable, and the differences in the two. This potential value, we kicked off the session, we talked about tracking your numbers and understanding is there value in your business. This is the number you're talking about, right? So if I'm looking to get out and I want Ted to buy my business, I go, yo, Ted, I've got $750,000 in opportunities. Well, those are opportunities, and they could be bogus, they could be fictitious, but it's a starting point. I can show him if I've got transactional history, close date, and all that stuff. I can kind of present this to him in a business case and try to determine value that's in my pipeline. Or I just want to know what's my potential income of everything, because I've got 25 years before I retire, but this is going to tell me where I'm at this point in time, in this month, in my business. So that's what you're looking at here. Now, this cultivate, appointment, active, and under contract, basically a point in time. Close is the one that changes here. Okay, these will always be here, and they will always affect potential and probable income. Now, when we close data will only sit in here till we transmit. Remember, as an organization, KW does things a little bit differently. We don't close our books at the end of, well, we do, but we close our books monthly. We do what's called transmittal, and we have closings every month. And then they're here, they're under close, and then they zero out, right? So closings are always going to be listed as to what closed this month. It's not a running total for 12 months or longer. So this will zero out every month. Now, it doesn't mean that I can't see all my closed history. I'll show you that in a minute. But just so you know, when you're looking at this screen, it's basically a month at a glance. And at the end of the month, transmittal, any closings I had will zero out. Okay? At the bottom of the page, there's a couple other, you've got some activity tracking, some ratios, and then what's scheduled to close this month will be listed all the way at the bottom. Yeah. So that's kind of just like a running total of what's going on and when everything's supposed to close. Now, I told you that the closings are here, and then once I close the month, the books, KW or Market Center, transmittal happens, this zeroes out. You also, so we're on this cover page. Then you have an all opportunities button here. Now, if you're a Rainmaker on a team, you're going to see some more things here. A Rainmaker will have their own. A Rainmaker will see everything on the team. And then a Rainmaker will also be able to filter this page by associate on their team. But I'm on a solo agent demo right now. And when I click on opportunities, I get this grid. What does this grid look like to you guys? Does it look like a whiteboard in your office? All right. Opportunity, address, type, phase, volume, commissions, close dates. We track that kind of information, right? So that's kind of what you're having. That's what you're seeing here. Now, remember, we talked about contacts yesterday. I can filter this information out. So I go to filter. I say, hey, show me all my listings that I've got that are active. Excuse me. And apply. So it modifies the screen, just shows me what I have active. And then what I can do is I can go to create a smart view and call it active listings. Save it. So that means every time I come back to the screen, instead of having to recreate that filter, I now have a saved filter for it. Time is money, right? How quickly can I recreate something? If I find something I have to do over and over and over again, we create a smart view around it, right? Now, magnify this across if I'm on a team. I can separate, create all these smart views as a Rainmaker, okay, for all the agents on my team. Show me all Patricia's listings. Show me all of Ted's under contracts. Show me all of Marcel's closed transactions this year. So you can multiple filters for multiple reasons inside the team dynamic. Now, this is also where you would see the archive. I showed you lost earlier. Here's where I could archive it. Now, archive it is pretty much everything is going to be lost if they don't close to some degree. Archive really is is this a test case? Am I playing around with this? Am I getting some bogus information to play around with this? And I archive it, right? For any other reason, if they're not going to buy from me, it's a lost opportunity. Does that make sense? Right? Even if it was, hey, that Charlie Brown here was going to move from Minnesota to Virginia, but then decided to go from Minnesota to Santa Clara, right? It's a lost opportunity for me on him moving here, but maybe I still get to refer him to Santa Clara, so it becomes a referral. So it was a lost opportunity from a purchase, but now I'm getting a referral out of it. Just different ways of looking at things. All right, so I'm going to come back here. Actually, before any questions on this display screen? This is actually the digital whiteboard, right? So imagine this at your desktop in your office, and you're casting to it. You're constantly updating it, and you're no longer getting your forearms black, brown, or red, or whatever colors you're using, right? Green.
I do have a quick question. You earlier mentioned about tags. Are the tags are different than the tags in the contact, correct?
Yeah, so underneath your settings,
Yeah, okay.
you'll create opportunity tags.
So they're different than the regular contact tags.
They are, yeah. So you've got contact settings, and there are contact tags, and then there are opportunity settings. There are opportunity tags. They may be similar, and they may be dramatically different. Or like I said, you might start tagging it by lender or title company, right, or distressed sale. Or I may still track where the lead came from. There's lead source, but some people still do that too. All right, come back to opportunities. Now on the opportunities dashboard, okay, so we covered what we're seeing here on this page. We also see here that I could create an opportunity here at the top. So you can either create it from the dashboard, or I could create it from the contact record. But the only real difference here is if I click around opportunity here, the client's not listed, right? So if I'm on the contact card, the client automatically populates. If I'm on the opportunity display, it doesn't know which client it is yet. So you just have to go ahead and select your client. That's the biggest difference as depending on where you're starting. That's all. One extra step, no big deal. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead into Snoopy's opportunity. I was talking about checklists, and I see Ted put the link inside of the chat for our listings display, so you guys can go back there and replicate them. The checklists have to be built. There is no default checklist for you guys to utilize, okay? You have to add them, and I'm sorry for that, but right now that's just how it is. But we do our best to kind of give you a jumping off point, and then you can customize them yourself. So inside of here, you see Snoopy's here. I have him under hot, but I'm going to move Snoopy back to watch. You see how quick I can just kind of drag him around? It kind of functions like a Trello board if you're or a Trello board if you're familiar with that. And then also, every time I grab the card, you see that these at the top, these phases highlight. I could actually take the card and go, all right, Snoopy's been cultivated. He was hot, but now Snoopy and I have an appointment. I could take the card and drag it up to the appointment tile and drag it up there. You see that the tile has gone from cultivate and it's now under the appointment, which means I'm scheduling an appointment. Had the appointment, we kept it, we had it, and now Snoopy signed the paperwork. Whoop, drag Snoopy. He's now an active contact or an active client of mine. Things just keep moving along. That's how you move things forward progressively through your opportunity dashboard. Do be conscious that I see some people kind of drag these up here and then they let them go. See, even though it highlighted and let it go, the center of this contact card has to kind of get over top of that for that to move. Just a little nuance inside the platform. Now, as I've been moving them through, I've been seeing some changes. The percentages have increased because I have built my system to increase percentage-wise as I move them along the transaction, so that earned potential, the probable income, is increasing as I'm moving through the transaction. Now, also on the bottom of the card, I see 0 to 3. These are the checklist items that I have to do, okay, at this stage of the opportunity phase. So if you think of these phases, and I'll come all the way back out again, cultivate, appointment, active contact, kind of like, you guys know what Russian nesting dolls are? They're just things that kind of stack inside each other, right? So if you think of the phases as the big doll, And under each phase are stages, multiple stages. And then underneath the stages are checklists, itty bitty things. Somebody told me this one thing and it clicked for me. So maybe it makes sense to you. It doesn't, but it works for me from a visualized standpoint that they're, moving them along. Now, there's no checklist here in the Cultivate for Watch. I haven't built anything yet, right? On the upper right-hand side, you see edit stages. Okay. If I click edit stage, that means I'm inside of this cultivate phase, and I'll see that there are 3 stages: watch, nurture, and hunt. I can add an additional stage. Maybe I want to add one that's called retry. Maybe it's somebody that I had in here, but then we were talking and then they disappeared. I don't necessarily know if I lost them yet, but they're kind of ghosting me. So maybe I will try them, and I'm going to move that to a 2% probability and save. So now I have this retry stage, right? That's what retry means to me. I'm just giving you an example. Now, what do I do when I put somebody in retry? Maybe there's some certain things I need to do. Okay, so I come over here, there's a checklist. So inside that checklist, maybe I need to call them, save. Maybe I need to add to mobile, or maybe add to smart plan 8x8. Just giving an example, right? Now you see I'm adding these as checklists. So now there are 2 items on my master checklist under my retry stage. Okay, so I'm going to come back out all the way out here. One more I want to cover. I also have this client update box. Let's just say, maybe I want to have my lender call them. Save. So maybe that's just something I'm going to update. I'm going to have my lender call them. Okay, save. So that means if I were to actually have an opportunity, and let's just take where do I leave? Snoopy. Okay, let's take Snoopy back to Cultivate. He doesn't want to move for me. There we go. And I put Snoopy here. Did I put that retry under list? So sometimes you have to pay attention to where you're working. I think I was under list. Yeah, that's where I must have been. Anyway, so let's pretend, let's go Snoopy. Where'd Snoopy go? There we go, Snoopy. Now, I have those checklisted items. Now, be mindful that I build them under list instead of buyers, so sorry for the confusion. But if there was checklist items that I had at this stage, I would see them here. Now, I could also add an item at the opportunity level. Okay. Now, if I set due date, that will trigger a task, Patricia. Okay, so that will due dates populate to a task. And if I'm on a team, I could actually assign it to an individual on a team to do it, and it'll show up on their tasks. Okay. Now, I added this step at the opportunity level. I didn't add this checklist step at the master level. So this will just be affiliated with this opportunity and not update my master checklist at all, which is kind of nice, right? So I can do certain things that are one-offs at the opportunity level, and they don't affect my master list. The only way to create or edit the master list is go back and edit the master list. Okay, I think that makes sense for everybody. So that's working the stages. So edit stages, can build them out, right? I'm gonna go back out here, sorry. Oh, there we go. So I did build, see, remember I added retry, it's under here. I put it under list and not buyer. See, when I move it, it now has 3 checklist items that I built underneath that stage. So really what you need to do is that you need to go under listings and buyers, then under each stage for each phase, and build out your checklist. So it just takes a little bit of time. But once you've done that, it's all set it, and then it's just a modification to keep changing it. Because as you grow in your business, you may find that you do things differently. So you may be adding stages or adding checklists to stages at different times as you start to do more and more things and realize. And as you grow into teams, right, you can assign things to individuals to do. You can assign when their due dates. There will be some advanced features that start to come later. Right now, there are no date triggers, right? So I can't say, hey, I ratified today, my inspection period is 10 days, so it doesn't backcheck. So I literally have to kind of say, hey, this is due on this date. It's not going to be able to read it. In the future, it's going to read the details that we put in. It's going to read our contracts, and it'll start to add timelines and dates. It just doesn't do that right now, but that's a process that we're kind of working towards. One other thing I want to show you inside of here is that I can change my view. I'm on this board view. I can change to list view. Some people, you might like to see it this way, which kind of looks more like that whiteboard, right? Or I can have tile view. No right or wrong here. It's just a matter of, hey, how do I like to do things and drag them along? Do I like to do it this way and drag them? Or do I prefer the tiles? Doesn't really matter. Yeah, and I don't normally do it this way, so I have to get, there we go, to get comfortable dragging and moving them around. So board view or list view. So let's come back out. All right, so we've covered creating an opportunity from the contact card. We've talked about creating an opportunity from the dashboard. We've talked about reading the dashboard and knowing where they are and what these prices mean. We've talked about the client setup, the importance of alerts going day. We talked about building stages and checklists underneath the nesting doll, right? That lead phase for whether it's buyer, seller, or landlord. We've talked about the importance of tracking the dates within the details, right? The devil's in the details. You guys might have heard that, right? As you update those things under reports, it starts tracking and let you know progressively how you're moving along against your goals, if you set your goals, right? We talked about all opportunities, and we understand now that once transmittal has happened at the end of the month, those close will disappear. However, they'll be under the all opportunities section for me to look at my running history. We understand the difference between active and lost. Okay. We understand that when we have an opportunity, I have to add documents and I have to add, right, turn on and unless you have documents and unless you put the offer in, you can't even do a commissions, just so you know, so there's no shortcut there. In order to get paid, you have to have a certain number of things. You have to have a contact. Contact has to have an opportunity. Opportunity has to have the documents. And then that offer has to be accepted inside the system for it to even turn on the ability to process a commission through your market center, just so you know. And then, the one thing I don't think I covered was, actually, let me go into one here. Let's go into the details from Barney. At the top here in the details, I talked about tying and listing to a property. So there's a select from listings here. So you actually get to search for the listing. And typically, unless it's your listing, you would search by all listings and you will actually see all listings, not just local listings, all listings. And if I actually search for a property, just happen to know this one active today. And search. I spelled it wrong. Right here. So then if I select this opportunity, then now this is actually tied to the listing. So you actually have to have a listing connected, okay? Or an address has to be here because there's sometimes if you're working for a new construction, there's actually might not be a listing. So you actually do have to go through and add that address in if you're doing a new construction. That's the one alternative difference where you wouldn't connect it to a listing because it might not be in the MLS. Come back out to the pipeline. And we're about 6 minutes short. So what questions do you guys have around opportunities? Go ahead and jump on open mic if that's okay.
So I have one quick question. So I'm working on my first potential seller lead.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I guess, so I'm assuming since it's not an active listing yet, I would just manually write that address in and then once it's active, link it together.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
thanks.
Yeah, you won't be able to link it to anything until it's actually in the MLS. So you would just put that in that details, that property address, just like you said.
Perfect.
Who else has a question? I know I threw a lot out at you, and you guys saw the links and understand now there's a little time to take to kind of build those checklists. Just time block a little bit. You don't have to worry about getting it all done unless you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to blow through this tonight and a bottle of wine. Go nuts. I'm cool with that. You may just want to do a little each day, right? Maybe you work through each stage, maybe you work through each phase and just start to add a couple of things every day as you get into your business. It's easier when you're new because you don't have as much going on, but you're also under the pressure of lead generating. So make sure you lead generate first before tying yourself up with all these things. There's a balance to what you do, right? Ted, any thoughts? Anything we missed?
No, I think you pretty much hit on everything. Just be really, the one thing we do on my team is just be really intentional, like you said, with those checklists, because it just gives you clarity and you can see your whole business, right?
Yeah. It's and running a team, right? Do you love the ability to kind of drill down and look at everything that your associates are doing on your team?
Yeah, not to dive too much into the team stuff, obviously, but as a rainmaker, just being able to individually go into each of my agents' pipelines and be able to have conversations around their individual goals, right? Not only can I see our business as a whole, but I can have conversations around their individual goals too.
Yeah, it's your coaching, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot here to make this work the right way, but once you've got this firing, and remember, we're still kind of in the infancy on some of these things that I fortunately have some insight as to where we're going with this, and I share some of those ideas with you. But just think of where this is going to go on some of the, like those date triggers once those come, or the ability to read contracts from this backfill and fill in the opportunities, like those types of things. Or say, instead of just saying, hey, add to smart plan, which I have to do manually, it fires by turning on a smart plan because that's the next step. Those things are coming, right? So build this with the knowledge that it's going to continue to improve. But that's all I really have for you guys today. You guys are easy. I had to do this on Tuesday for KW, and there was 900 people on the call. So, I feel real tight and personal with all you guys today.
David, I have a question. It sort of relates to opportunities, but it's more about, so I have two people that opted out on the texting, and then one person that told me he has a realtor that he's been working with. I get a lot of lead generation from other sources.
Okay.
As valuable. So I wanted to ask you, in contacts, how do you make it where someone doesn't want to be, how do you delete people out of contacts or archive them so that they don't get contact? They don't want any more contact per se.
You could create a tag, do not contact. Right now, they're working on it. And this is important. Like you bring up a really good question. And we're hopefully in the next 60 days, we'll see a release around this, that when if somebody opts out of texting, it won't allow you to text them anymore. Twilio will block that number if they've opted out. Okay. Now, if somebody says, do not email me anymore, and they're on a smart plan, that smart plan won't send them any more emails. However, if I add them to another smart plan, it could start emailing them again. So there's no blockage in the system to prevent emails going out again. Okay.
This is based on a conversation that I had with a gentleman. He said, oh, I've already, I have a realtor. Don't send me any more emails. Don't send me any more smart plans.
So the question is, do you want to remove them from your database? If the answer is yes, you can just go to the three dots next to them and click archive.
Okay. I mean, he was pretty clear. I respect his request.
Then go ahead and you could archive them. And remember, it's two steps. You could archive them, and then once he's in archive, you can delete them. Or you can create a tag, and maybe you want to keep them there. I don't know. I've heard people say never delete anybody. Maybe you just create a tag that says do not contact.
Right, but then he's already got an email in there. So when we set up smart plans and things like that, he might automatically get email. Okay, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's no secondary filter, right? So that is also something they're working on. Like maybe he's an open house lead, and then I set up a smart plan for all my open house leads, but he's also a do not contact. I don't have that secondary filter to remove him. So you do have to be conscious of that, right? And I don't want you to get in trouble. So yes, to the default, you could throw them in archive and maybe it sits there. It all, you know, and until we get some secondary filters in place. But those are your options.
Yeah, it wasn't a soft, don't call me. It was a hard no.
Oh yeah, then you might just flat out archive them.
Thank you.
Coming up 1 minute to 11. Any other questions you guys have? Okay. This is recorded. I'll get this loaded. The first 3 days are loaded to the YouTube channel. Ted, if you could throw the YouTube link into the chat as well as the Facebook group. If you guys can follow us on both Facebook for the region and YouTube on the region, every time I post an update and you've subscribed to the region channel, you'll get an alert that there's a new training has been posted. And they're not always these sessions, they might be other things, right? If you follow us on the YouTube Facebook page, I monitor that for Q&A. So like if you have a question, how to do something, I post quick off videos. My Market Center tech trainers monitor that for people that need help or support. And it sometimes might be a quick, easy way for you to get some clarity around what you're trying to accomplish. Just ways that we're just trying to support you in your business from the regional level. So have a great day. And today is Thursday. Is today Thursday already? Wow. Okay. So there's no training tomorrow. We pick back up again on week 2 on Monday. And Monday we will talk about the consumer app. So we'll talk about websites and mobile and how to engage with your consumer and what that looks like for them in their journey and their relationship with you. So take care, everybody, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks, David.
Always.
Thank you. Bye-bye.